What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to another video. Today, I'm doing race picks for the 2022 Daytona 500. Let's go and just jump straight into it. This weekend, NASCAR is heading to Daytona National Speedway to kick off the new season in the 64th running of the Daytona 500 and also beginning a new official era of the sport. We did have the Busch Clash, but this is a new official era of the sport of NASCAR racing. And there's so many unknowns coming into this year's Busch Light Clash, among many other new factors. With, like I said, a new car, we do not know how the racing is going to be for this year's Daytona 500. So many unknowns and a lot of things to discuss here in this race prediction. So before we jump into the picks, let's jump and take a look at the weather for this weekend for the Daytona 500. For the last couple of years, we've had issues with rain, and let's look at the weather. Currently, the weather actually for this Sunday, as of right now, I'm currently filming this on Monday evening going into Tuesday, so the weather can absolutely change. But currently at the moment, the temperature looks pretty good. It's 74 as a high and 61 as a low, with only a 20% chance of rain, with partly cloudy skies throughout the day. It will transition to mostly cloudy skies, but most likely it'll be very good weather for the event and no chance of rain currently, with only 20% chance of rain. And now let's jump into the picks. For those who are new to the channel that have joined the channel very recently, how I do picks on the channel is I do kind of similar to the NASCAR Weekly podcast. I do a suck pick, someone who runs up front who's going to struggle, and an underdog pick, someone who's doesn't run as well, or someone who's had a good run that's going to have a good run, and someone who I think will win the race as well. And then I do ones to watch as well, drivers who I also think will be competitive and will compete for the overall victory. And I've got a lot of ones to watch this weekend. And also for this weekend, I'm also going to be doing the open car as well and telling you who I think is going to make the show and the ones that are not going to be going out. Since we have 42 cars, we do have 4 that are getting in and 2 that are not getting in. So let's jump into that. First, let's talk about the open cars, the ones who are going to make the show and the ones who I do not think are going to make the show. There are 6 drivers that will be attempting to make this year's Daytona 500 that are not already locked into the show. You've got the 27 of Team Haysbert, that's for Jacques Villeneuve. You've got Kaz Grala in the 50 car, Greg Biffle in the 44 car. You've got Timmy Hill, who is in the 66. You've got JJ Yeley in the 55, and you also have Noah Gragson, who is in like the 62 as well. You've got 6 drivers who are trying to vie for 2 positions to get in this year's Daytona 500. So who are the 4 that I think are going to make the show and the 2 that are going to go home? The 2 that I think are going to make it off of speed. First one is Noah Gragson. The 6'2 car came very close to making last year's Daytona 500, and I don't think Noah Gragson is going to have to worry about racing his way in. I think Rich Schoss Racing is going to give them very, very fast equipment, and I think that Bury Motorsports 62 with Noah Gragson will be the first to make the show. The other one that will make it off of speed is going to be Greg Biffle, who's going to be driving a 44 for NY Racing. I think Greg Biffle is still going to get it done. He's still a really, really good racer to this day. I think Greg Biffle will be the second one that is going to make the race and make the show in this year's Daytona 500. I think that RCR is going to give them really, really strong equipment, and I think that he'll be the second one to make this year's Daytona 500, which leaves 4 drivers open up for 2 spots. Who are the 2 other drivers that are going to race their way in? The first one I think that's going to race in is a 50 car that's being driven by Kaz Grala. Kaz Grala is an excellent super speedway racer. He had really strong runs at super speedways with College Racing last year, and I think that's going to come into play, that experience he's had. Plus, they've got help from Hendrick Motorsports, which is really going to help them have a lot of speed, and I think Kaz Grala will be the first to make it in. And then the final driver that I think is going to make it in, this one's going to shock a lot of people, but I think Jacques Villeneuve in the 27 car for Team Haysbert is going to be the final driver to make it into the show. Now, this is the first time that Jacques Villeneuve is attempting a NASCAR Cup Series race, I think since 2010 or 2008, if I'm not mistaken, when he attempted to qualify for Daytona 500. And ironically, the 27 car for Bill Davis Racing. I think Jacques Villeneuve, though, is going to make it in this year's Daytona 500, and I think he's going to have the pace and the speed. So the 4 that get in are Noah Gragson, Greg Biffle, Kaz Grala, and Jacques Villeneuve, which means that Timmy Hill and JJ Lee, both of the MBM cars, I don't think are going to make it in. I think JJ Lee does have a good shot to make it in, and they have a good car coming for him, but honestly, I don't think JJ Lee is going to make it into the show. And Timmy Hill as well. MBM generally has kind of struggled on super speedways, at least in the Cup Series side of things. I could be wrong, he makes it in the show, but I do not think that Timmy Hill is going to make it in. So I think that JJ Lee and Timmy Hill unfortunately missed the show in this year's Daytona 500. And now let's jump into the suck pick for this year's Daytona 500. Who is going to be my suck pick for this year's Daytona 500? My suck pick is surprisingly really good in the Xfinity Series when he's coming up as Super Speedways. But in the Cup Series, he has been extremely hit or miss and has failed to win a Super Speedway race in his NASCAR Cup Series career. He's won every other major event except probably the Brickyard 400, but he has not been able to go to victory lane at a Super Speedway, and I don't think that's going to happen this time. My suck pick is Sherex Jr. Sherex Jr. has absolutely struggled at Super Speedways over the years, and I do not personally think that Sherex Jr. is going to have a great Daytona 500. He's got an average finish like 25th or 30th on Super Speedways. He did have a really strong run in 2016 where he nearly won the Daytona 500. It was on the verge of winning in 2017 before running out of gas, but I do not think that Sherex Jr. will have a good run. I think he finishes outside the top 25 in this year's Daytona 500. And now we're jumping into the underdog pick. Who is my underdog pick for this year's Daytona 500? My underdog pick is under a lot of people's radars in this year's Daytona 500. And I think a lot of people should be having this guy higher on his radar. His odds are 35-1. This guy was really fast also in the Busch Light Clash, but unfortunately getting taken out by Kyle Larson in the Busch Light Clash. I think you now know who I'm going with. I am going with Justin Haley as my underdog pick. I think Justin Haley honestly could be a surprise candidate to win this year's Daytona 500. And the reason is he is an extremely good super speed racer. All 4 of his NASCAR Xfinity Series wins when he drove for Kellogg Racing were, you guessed it, Kellogg Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series came at super speedway tracks. And I think that super speed experience comes in. And his only Cup Series victory had come at, you guessed it, super speedway tracks. Justin Haley is a very strong super speed racer, and I think that experience is really going to come into play. I think Justin Haley is going to be an underdog to win, and I think he could surprise a lot of people by stealing the victory in this year's Daytona 500. And now we're jumping into the winner's pick. Who is my winner's pick for this year's Daytona 500? This one, I don't believe I've ever gotten this one right so far in Daytona 500 history. Last year, I picked Denny Hamma to win, and unfortunately didn't win. And I was really thinking maybe that I was going to pick Denny Hamma once again. However, I'm changing it up for this year, and I'm going with another driver who's a very strong super speedway racer. This guy has won here at Daytona once back in 2021 in the fall, and has been one of the best super speed racers in the NASCAR Cup Series over the years. My winner's pick is going to be the driver of the 12 car for Team Penske, Ryan Blinny. Like I said, Ryan Blinny is a very strong super speed racer, and he's one driver that I feel like is owed a Daytona 500. He dominated the race in 2018, probably should have won that race, had the car to beat in that one for getting unfortunately involved in a wreck and coming back to finish, I think, 6th or 7th. In 2019, he unfortunately, I think, got involved in that big one, and in 2020, had probably a car that could have easily won before, unfortunately, getting a photo finish between him and Denny Hamma and losing the event. In 2021, I think he got unfortunately involved in the big one. I think Ryan Blaney's not going to have any issues this time around, and I think that Ryan Blaney, yes, is going to win the Daytona 500 in 2022. He's owed a Daytona 500. It's only a matter of time before he gets it done. I think Ryan Blaney is going to win the 2022 Daytona 500. And now let's jump into the ones that you need to watch out for this year's Daytona 500. And trust me, we've got a ton of ones to watch for this year's Daytona 500. My first driver you need to keep your eyes on, of course, is Denny Hamma. Denny Hamma has won 3 Daytona 500s. Only in the history has only happened twice where a driver has won 4 Daytona 500s, that being Cale Yarborough, who scored 4 Daytona 500 victories, and Richard Petty, who's won 7. Denny Hamlin is arguably the best super speed racer in the NASCAR Cup Series to this day. He's been extremely fast on his tracks. He's won 2 or 3 races at Talladega, and like I mentioned, he's won 3 Daytona 500s. I think Denny Hamlin is going to be a threat to win this year's Daytona 500, and will be one of Ryan Blaney's biggest threats to win. The second driver I think that you need to watch out for is the most recent winner at Super Speedways, that being Bubba Wallace in the 23 car. Bubba Wallace is a really good super speed racer, and like I mentioned, picked up his first NASCAR Cup Series victory at a super speedway, that being Talladega, and a race-shortened victory. But let's not forget that last year in the Daytona 500, Bubba Wallace was extremely fast, and had he not had that loose wheel happen at the end of the race, he probably could have contended for the overall victory and probably could help Denny Hamlin secure the victory, be right there in contention to make the chance to win the Daytona 500. I think Bubba Wallace is going to be much faster this year, especially I think 2311 is going to have more pace, especially on super speedways, and Bubba Wallace is one to watch out for in this year's Daytona 500. The third driver you need to keep your eyes on is the driver of the 6 car for RFK Racing, Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski is joining a new team this year, of course, with RFK Racing. And I think Brad Keselowski has a really good chance to win this year's Daytona 500. And the big reason is because the Roush Yates engines. Roush Yates engines tend to be extremely fast and tend to show a ton of pace and a ton of speed every single time we come here. And I think that speed is going to show up once again in the Daytona 500. And I think Brad Keselowski probably has his best chance ever to win a Daytona 500. He's been great at Talladega, but in year Daytona, he's been very much opposite and has struggled at Daytona. But I don't think he makes the same mistakes. I think he's got a good shot to win the 500 this year. The fourth driver you need to keep your eyes on is a driver of the 22 car for Team Penske, Joey Logano. Joey Logano, of course, has won the Daytona 500 back in 2015, and Joey Logano came very close to winning the 500 last year before unfortunately getting into a last lap crash with Brad Keselowski. I think Joey Logano is going to be up front. He's going to be also very, very aggressive in the Daytona 500. He's been very open and admitted to saying that he's going to be very aggressive in this year's Daytona 500. I think he's going to be one to watch, whereas I think Joey Logano is going to have a lot of pace. The next driver to watch for is going to be driver of the 47 for JTG Doherty Racing, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is a very underrated super speed racer. Both of his wins have come in super speedways, one at Talladega and one at Daytona, both of them coming in 2017. I think Stenhouse is going to be fast. Stenhouse is another guy that I think is going to be extremely aggressive, and I think he'll be one that is extremely quick. And the final driver you need to keep your eyes out on is the driver of the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports, Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott is a really good super speed racer. Now at Daytona, has not gone as well, but last year he was a runner-up in the Daytona 500, and had that caution not come out on the last lap, I feel like he could have secured the victory over Michael McDowell. I think Chase Elliott's going to be a threat to win, and I think he's going to show a lot of pace and be one to watch in this year's Daytona 500. So, those are the race picks for this year's Daytona 500. Just a reminder, my suck pick is Sherex Jr. My underdog is Justin Hillier. My winner's pick is Ryan Blinny. And my ones to watch are Denny Hamma, Bubba Wallace, Brad Keselowski, Joe Logano, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Chase Elliott. So, anyway, there's today's race picks video on the channel. Want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notification on to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's get over that and comment your picks for this weekend at the Daytona 500. Tell me you think it's going to suck. Tell me your underdog pick, and tell me your winner's pick in the comments below. And tell me which drivers you think are going to make this show and who you think is going to go home in this year's Daytona 500. Let me know in the comments below. The NASCAR season is right around the corner. Daytona 500 is this week, and I might have some stuff that's coming out before the start of the season. I will have a starting grid video for the Daytona 500, and I might also have a driver lineup video out before the beginning of the season, but don't count on that. But anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.